You have sociopaths, you have scoundrels, and you have salesmen. In Cyberpunk 2077, there is a fixer for each of these categories. Some even fit under more than one of them. Whether they're out to get revenge or on a hunt for eddies. Whether you love them or hate them, fixers are one of the more privileged types of people in Night City. Middlemen between mercs and corporations, fixers get the biggest chunk of change, along with connections that offer them protection. Being a fixer might just be one of the sweetest gigs in the whole city. Of course, not every single one of them is satisfied with these potential guarantees. Not every fixer is content with selling stolen cars, lording over the best bar in the city, or the power that they may have already assembled. Faraday from Edgerunners is a classic example of never having enough. For Faraday, power was a ladder with no foreseeable end. He would keep climbing and climbing, only stopping when one fatal slip-up sent him plummeting back to Earth. Faraday is an interesting kind of fixer. As Evelyn Parker says in Cyberpunk 2077, there are only two types of fixers. Ones that prefer predictable, organized mercenaries who follow the plan that they laid out, and ones that operate simply based on fear, embracing their own unpredictable persona. Fixers like Faraday used the intimidation his position and personality created to keep his underlings obedient. If a useful, reliable merc died, he didn't care. He would just use another peon to stand on top of. Rather than approaching his work with a spirit of cooperation and friendliness, Faraday threatens Maine. He entices Kiwi. He lures David in, knowing just what prize to dangle before the dogs that he wanted to leash, as well as what threats to make. Faraday always had his many eyes on many prizes. No matter what, all Faraday cared about was the reward. Faraday wanted the results of eddies, prestige, and power. He was a fixer trying to make the leap to Corpo. Problem is, Faraday was so focused on getting to the top that he didn't notice what was going on around him. Faraday had worked with Militech for at least some years before the start of Edgerunners. The crew he happens to be using during David's heyday is Maine's. We don't see too many interactions between him and Maine, but from what we do see, he is cold and threatening. I won't say Maine is frightened of Faraday, but he's certainly wary of crossing him. Faraday was well connected despite his more unsavory aspects. Whatever reward there was for the job with Tanaka, it must have been decent, because Maine and Dorio ended up getting killed over it. Faraday was of course irritated with their deaths, but not because he lost two reliable and effective mercenaries. It's because it put some heat on him from Militech. Faraday has been trying to climb into Militech's good graces and upper echelons for years, wanting to extend his reach far beyond that of a simple fixer. He wanted power, status, and wealth, things that Militech was likely never going to give him in the first place. Faraday, because of what power he does hold over those who are lesser than him in the Night City food chain, has an inflated sense of self-importance. Faraday can't see that to Militech he's just one of 1,000 other fixers that they can work with across the country. Even in Night City, there are a bunch of other fixers they can just turn to if they're ever unsatisfied with him, and from the looks of it, Militech was becoming unsatisfied with him. Faraday was just another nobody to the people above him, in the same way that Faraday looks at those who work beneath him. Arasaka knew this when they arranged that hit on Faraday. They knew that if he survived it, that Militech was going to leave him on his own when it came to protection. Faraday never realized that when he defected to Arasaka to spite Militech, that this was just what Arasaka wanted. As much as Faraday liked to use unpredictability as a tool on his underlings, he was certainly predictable enough to the bigger fish in the sea. After siding with Arasaka, Faraday gets even more puffed up than before. He's played right into Arasaka's hands, but Faraday is so egotistical that this backfires on them both. Faraday wanted Arasaka's money, and all the potential rewards that could come from working with them. So, when they task him with kidnapping Lucy and getting data on the cyberskeleton, he decides to go even bigger. Not only does Faraday kidnap Lucy, he also tries to lay a trap for David. After discovering David's value to Arasaka, he figures he can trick him into the cyberskeleton and impress Arasaka with essentially running a test of it using David. And as the cherry on top, he leaks the information of the skeleton to Militech, as he has secretly defected to Arasaka, not openly. When Militech is just meant to be fodder for this test, this is Faraday just being petty. Of course, this all backfires immensely. When Faraday gloats to David about getting Lucy and getting him into the cyberskeleton, this sets him off. When he created the absolute hellfire of Militech's destruction, that then was another target on his back, even if he did get away from Arasaka after this whole job was said and done. And because of the destruction against Arasaka that the enraged David has wrought, Arasaka was not happy with him. The losses caused by Faraday are not cheap. Faraday thinks he did Arasaka a favor, getting David and the cyberskeleton and Lucy and everything, but Arasaka is already at the doorstep of dumping him. There are tons of other fixers with tact and predictability. Middlemen who know to toe the line and not be as hard to control as Faraday is. When David nearly kills Faraday the first time, he is delusional enough to think that he can order Atom Smasher around. He still thinks he's gonna get something from Arasaka after all is said and done. Atom Smasher proceeds to humble Faraday in 5 very effective words.
Atom Smasher, hurry! Go on, kill the boy! Who the fuck are you?
David does manage in the end to get his final payback on Faraday, sending him flying out of Arasaka Tower's upper floors, the highest that he had ever climbed in his quest for power. In a way, Faraday does get what he wanted. When he dies, his eyes finally rest upon that final prize, being Arasaka Tower. Faraday's story is a lot like David and Maine's, and even Lucy's, in the sense that all of these characters took a bite far bigger than they could chew. They all had the sense that they could mold insane odds to their advantage, taking on these impossible situations that were always doomed to end not great. The only one who gets close to actually sort of succeeding in that category is David, but just like everybody else, it ends terribly for him too. He just manages to save Lucy. Despite his limited screen time, Faraday is one of the more interesting fixers in the series, at least for me. It would have been cool to find some Easter eggs in the game concerning him. If you know of any, please let me know. I've heard of the Kiwi Easter egg, and I know Lucy left all of those columbarium Easter eggs, and you can find Rebecca's gun and everything, but is there anything to do with Faraday? Can I collect his eyeball? Thank you very, very much for watching, guys. I actually shelved this idea for a Faraday video, kind of a bonus Edgerunners video in a way. It just sort of hit me better after I'd started playing 2077 in tandem, you know, doing all these videos on Edgerunners. So yeah, now I felt a little more up to snuff with understanding fixers and sort of the industry that they work in. They are an interesting bunch, and I look forward to exploring the characters of every single one of them, my favorite being Rogue. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a wonderful day, guys. Thank you very much. Goodbye!